Welcome to East Alabama Today, featuring topics, events, and interesting people from all over East Alabama. Hosted by Carl Brady. Now, let's get right to the show. Here's Carl Brady.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into East Alabama Today. I'm Carl Brady. Thanks so much for being with us on today's program. We want to start you off with some contact information for the show, as we always do, because you know, you guys are our eyes and ears out on the street around East Alabama. You know what's happening in your community out there in your neck of the woods. So let us know what's happening, and you never know, you might find yourself or your event featured here on East Alabama Today. The best way to let me know what's going on is to send me email. cbrady@tv24.tv. cbrady@tv24.tv. Go there, send me information about fairs, festivals, special events, nonprofit organizations, and events that are happening in your community. And you know, we always like to talk to the interesting people who live in your community as well. Folks who are writers, authors, or musicians, or even if they just have an odd or interesting hobby and you think they'd be a great guest on the program, that's exactly who we're looking for. So we want you to send us their information. cbrady@tv24.tv. And remember to go to our brand new, newly redesigned website at tv24.tv to check out past episodes of East Alabama Today. A whole on-demand archive there, so you can, if you miss it on TV, you can always go online and view it there at tv24.tv. I think you're going to love today's show. We'll be back to get started in just a moment. And we welcome you back into East Alabama Today. Again, thanks so much for joining us. I'm Carl Brady. And as we always talk about in the opening, we're looking for the interesting people in the community. And we've got a really interesting guest with us today. It's a name and a face that many of you are going to recognize. So we'd like to welcome Les Butler today to East Alabama Today. Les, great to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me, Carl. My pleasure. I've been watching you online. You, sir, do a good job. I'm honored to be with you today.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. It's a great pleasure to have you with us. Les is the host of a TV show that you see here on TV24 called Harmony Road, the Southern Gospel Music Show. You're also in 45 million homes around the country.
That's what they tell me.
On that show. And publisher of the Singing News magazine, artist, musician, Southern Gospel, you name it in Southern Gospel, you've been a part of it over the last 30 years or so.
Well, when the plumbing goes out, I plumb as well. So all the above. If you're in gospel music, you've got to wear lots of hats if you're going to have enough food for some chicken salad on the table. So.
A diesel mechanic is one of the biggest ones on there, isn't it?
That one you don't want me to do, assuming you want to go from point A to point B.
Right. Well, tell us a little bit about Les Butler. We see you on there interviewing on Harmony Road. You're interviewing all the Southern Gospel artists. We're learning more about them. But let's learn more a little about Les today.
Okay.
You are actually a Southern Gospel musician yourself, so
yes,
talk
sir.
about that
yes,
a little
sir.
bit.
Well, I've got what I think is kind of an interesting story. Mm-hmm. It's an unusual one for sure. Being a Southern Gospel and a bluegrass gospel guy, I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, not the Southern and bluegrass Mecca of America. And but where I got my Southern Gospel and bluegrass influences, my parents, they were born and raised in Eastern Kentucky. I mean, way up in the mountains. Oh, yeah. And all I've ever known all my life is that type of lifestyle, even in Chicago, Illinois. Cornbread, pinto beans, raw onion, that's me, And so I got my music is from them, and mm-hmm. they played and sang, and when they did, it was all Southern country bluegrass stuff. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite stories to ever tell is as a child, I remember we had a big long Oldsmobile 98. You remember? They were 50 feet long. They're like a bus, and we were going through downtown Chicago, the Magnificent Mile, Michigan Avenue, where all of the multi-million-dollar stores and the Sears Tower and the John Hancock and all of that going on. And it was in the summer and it was hot, and that Olds 98 didn't have air, and so the windows were down, and we were going through town with Flatt and Scruggs live from Carnegie Hall blaring. stood out a little bit.
I'm sure, yeah.
And then also my parents, they were members of what was then called the Canaan Record Club. Canaan Records was the top Southern gospel label.
Yeah.
And it was the home label of folks like the Happy Goodmans, the Florida Boys, the Inspirations, the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And so once a month, we got an album sent to us as being a part of that club. And so that's how I learned how to play all of my instruments. We'd open up the box, I'd put it on our big piece of furniture, turntable, 10 feet long, 5 feet wide, all wood, just a piece of furniture. It happened to have a record player.
Built right in the middle
of it. And so I'd slap 5 of them on there from Canaan Records, and they'd drop, one at a time. And I'd go to the piano and play along with Darrell Stewart and Martin Cook and all of these Southern gospel piano players. And so that's where a city slicker like me gets to be in Southern gospel and bluegrass gospel music because of my parents.
Absolutely.
So that's how all of that started.
But how did that translate into the more business side of things, of actually becoming the publisher of Singing News magazine and then the radio shows, the TV shows, and those kind of things?
Well, my very first weekend on the air was the first weekend in October 1978. And it was on WYCA 92.3 FM in Hammond, Indiana, which is right on the border of Hammond and Chicago and all that. So that was, this is 2014, so 36 years, this is my 36th year. So I started the business side there on the radio. And then that went from going to some other radio stations as I moved throughout my career. And then I guess about 16 years ago, I met Jim Cumbie, who was the new owner of what's now known as the Solid Gospel Radio Network. And one thing led to another, and I moved to Nashville to help him work on that network, and ended up running the network with him. And then he sold it and went to work for the company that purchased it, Salem Communications. And Salem ended up buying Singing News magazine. And so then I went from not just being in the radio division to being in the publishing division.
Right. And
at the time when Jerry Kirksey retired, then I took the position as publisher. So and so I still work with Singing News as today, and Solid Gospel as well.
Let's talk about the magazine a little bit. It is absolutely the most well-known magazine that covers Southern gospel music. You handle the charts, you handle interviews, art, concert tours, everything in there. How do you keep your finger on everything going on in the industry that way?
Well, I don't, but we have a staff, that they're very good, and couldn't do it without them for sure. And so Danny Jones, the editor-in-chief, he's been the editor for, I guess, close to 20 years. And man, he just does a stellar job. Rick Francis and Dawn Shue and Pam Slaney. My daughter works there now and has for the past several years, Amber. And so it's the staff, and we're just very involved in the music. It's not a 40-hour-a-week job, especially for myself and for Danny. I mean, it is our livelihood and it's our lives.
Right.
And we love it, and so we eat, drink, breathe, and sleep it. And so just because of absorbing all of that, we pretty well can keep up with what's going on. But, Southern gospel groups, lots of changes. And this person will leave and start a group, and this one goes there. So sometimes we need a scoreboard, but we figure it out.
Well, you guys are a good scoreboard for us, so we can we can keep up with those things. I'll tell you a couple of my favorite things that are part of Singing News magazine. The when you go home with the artist. What's their life like outside of being on the road? When they're home on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, where they live, what are they doing, and what's life like for them? I enjoy those articles, and the tales from the road stuff. The funny stories, the bus breakdowns, and those kind of things. The behind the scenes kind of stuff. I guess since this is what we do, the behind the scenes stories are really interesting for me.
One of the most popular new columns that we have today is called Married to the Music, and Melissa Brady writes that, and that's where we go not to the artists themselves, but to the spouse, and we talk to the spouse about what it's like whenever your husband or your wife is on the road,
Right.
and what's it like when they're on the road, and then what's it like when they come back home for 2 or 3 days. And boy, she does such a great job with that column, and it's very popular.
That does sound
so. Yeah, and we try to freshen things up and change, the columns around. One of my favorite things, and I just saw it when I proofed it a day or two ago, was a rewind column. I'd asked Danny to consider that, and he's taken the ball and he's run with it, and it went back 30 years, and we looked at the charts of I think it was March of 1984, and who had the top songs and some of the stories from back then, and then they talked about some of the things actually going on in the world back then, and so it was just a great 2-page spread of going back 30 years and remembering some great old songs and seeing some great old pictures of some groups that's no longer traveling today, the cathedrals, and so on.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, I enjoyed that. I enjoy the magazine.
I'm sure,
I'm its most avid reader and fan.
Yeah.
And and it absolutely blows me away that God has blessed me to be in any position at the Singing News, because I go back to when it was a tabloid, a newspaper, not a magazine, and I saved up my nickels and dimes when I started on the radio in 1978. I was just 16 years old, and I would buy that copy every month, and I would use that as my fodder and what I talk about on my shows. And so I've been its #1 fan for that many years, 34 years, and just to be a part of it now is God's just good.
Oh, absolutely.
God's good to me.
We'll take a quick commercial break and be back in just a moment and visit more with Les Butler. So stay with us here on East Alabama Today. And we welcome you back into East Alabama Today. Les Butler is our guest, the host of Harmony Road, a Southern Gospel TV show that you see here on TV 24, publisher of Singing News Magazine, also musician, singer, preacher, Southern Gospel. You've been involved in the world of Southern Gospel music, as we were talking, a little over 30 years. Let's talk a little bit about the transition or the evolution of Southern Gospel music over the years. We've seen a lot of changes from the all-male quartets, all dressed just alike, to more contemporary sounding, even bleeding over into the country music sounding a little bit. But that bass, that Southern Gospel feel and spirit is always there, even as the music has changed a little bit.
I think the common thread to all of that is that Southern Gospel, more than any of the other forms of Christian music, is based straight up in the Word of God. And there's lots of blood, cross, Jesus is coming again. The core of the Word is the core of a Southern Gospel song. And whether it's done with 4 guys wearing the same suits, 4 different suits, family groups, bluegrass stylings, acoustic instruments, the core, what makes Southern Gospel music is that message.
Yes.
And that is the same.
And even though we still call it Southern Gospel, the audience is worldwide now. People love Southern Gospel music, Chicago, California, all over the country, and I noticed Gordon Mode is a friend of mine, and he was recently in Europe or somewhere doing a tour, and people love the music.
Well, on the Solid Gospel Radio Network that I'm on, we're on in I think 30 some states and 80 some markets, but we have a stream, solidgospel.com, and the stream is unreal. The numbers that I see coming back from corporate, on average, over 110,000 listeners in a month. And on the air we ask for emails and all that, and there isn't a day that goes by that I don't get multiple, typically dozens of emails from every part of the world, multiple foreign countries, every single day.
Wow.
And so Southern Gospel is no longer just a southeast kind of music.
Right.
It is everywhere.
Even the audience has changed a little bit. I know from years ago working some Southern gospel shows on the radio stations I've worked at, advertisers would kind of shy away because the only people who listen to that Southern gospel music are the little old ladies on Social Security. But that audience has changed over the years. To younger people are being involved in listening to it, and people with disposable incomes. The fan base has expanded tremendously.
You know, I think maybe one key, certainly this isn't the only key, but one major thing that's happened over the last 30 years is Bill Gaither. And when the Homecoming series started to take off, you know, the corporate world couldn't deny at that point the kind of numbers they were seeing from SoundScan, from product sales, and from ticket sales. I mean, when you look in Rolling Stone magazine in the annual and see Bill Gaither and the Homecoming tour in the top 10 highest grossing tours of all music genres, you got something. And so, thank you, Mr. Gaither.
Absolutely, he has really opened up the world to Southern gospel. Looking forward, I'm sure you've seen so many aspects of Southern gospel music, the future of Southern gospel music. Are there enough young people involved to keep this going on forever?
Well, you know, to me the answer is yes. But I will say this: I think Southern gospel has one pretty significant challenge, and here. To me, it's this. We have got to get real instruments back in the hands of real hands and musicians, and less of the what I would call karaoke. I mean, soundtracks and singing, and some of my favorite groups, that's how they do it, and they bless me. And so I you know, I'm not slamming them, but you know, when a young person can go in their room, fire up Guitar Hero, and play guitar with the biggest bands in the history of the world, when they can do that in their home, you know, we've got to be able to give them a venue to come out and do that in public, or they'll figure it out on their own and go to music genres that will allow them to do that. And so I think the biggest challenge, in my opinion, is to get away from the canned music and let's get back to a band, even if it's just piano and bass. That's a start. And if you can get piano, bass, and another instrument, you know, build it up. I think maybe there could be a year and a half, 2 years of a bump in the road, because you know there's an economic force here. The more you take on the road, the more expensive it is. The more expensive it is, you've got to maybe increase ticket prices and that kind of thing. But I'm telling you, if the fans got a good dose of great singing, great musicianship, great songs, and God blessing that, it wouldn't take too long before they would be happy to cough up another $5-10 a ticket to get that kind of an experience.
To get that great quality.
Where's the camera? What camera am I on? There's the challenge. Am I right? That's the challenge. Help us to figure that out, and let's get that fixed.
You know, Southern gospel is so big that every community, no matter how big or small, has a Southern gospel group in it. And there are a lot of people out there on a every weekend basis who are singing Southern gospel music in a church somewhere. They're not in the Singing News Top 10 or making the charts. They're not even able to afford to put out records most of the time, or CDs. What would you say to them as a piece of advice from somebody who's in the business for so long? What's the best thing you can tell them?
Well, first I tell them, God bless them. Thank you for whatever you do for the cause of Christ. Bloom where you're planted. Maybe you should just be in your local community. Maybe that's God's plan for you. And if there's a plan beyond that, and you have the talent to back that up, doors will open. It can naturally evolve. But you know, not everyone has been called to jump on a bus and run up and down the roads and be in the top 10 in the Singing News and sing on the main stage at the National Quartet Convention. Bloom where you're planted.
Absolutely. We need to take us another quick commercial break, so we'll take care of that right now and come back and finish things up in just a moment. So stay with us here on East Alabama Today. And we welcome you back in for our final segment here on East Alabama Today. Les Butler is our guest, and we did talk a little bit about the fact that you are a musician and Southern gospel musician, and you do have some product here, some CDs that are available. Tell folks how to get these.
Yes, sir. Well, you can email me, les@butlermusicgroup.com. And here's a phone. Can I give a phone number?
Sure.
615-218-0517. And what you have in your hand there, I've got a piano CD of just hymns, 20-some hymns. My son and I, between the two of us, we play like 15 different instruments.
Wow.
And so we call ourselves a two-man band. And so that CD has, like I say, 12, 13 instruments, all played by the two of us.
Wow.
And so that's that. And then my wife and I, we sing, and you've got one of those there as well. And so we go out and sing and pick and sing. And I'm a preacher, and I preach, and I bloom where I'm planted.
Bloom where you're planted.
You know,
exactly.
God says, go over there and preach. I'm going to preach, and if I'm singing, I'm singing, whatever He wants.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we mentioned, Les is the host of Harmony Road, the TV show that you see on TV 24, and that airs on Sundays at 10:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. Those are the main airing times, and there are other times scattered throughout the week as well. And you can learn more about the TV show at harmonyroadtv.com. And also, don't forget the Singing News magazine. Les is the publisher of the Singing News magazine, and that is singingnews.com. to go to the website there. And even the magazine industry has had to go through some changes. You can do.
Oh yes.
You can have the printed copy sent to your house.
Yeah.
Or you can do the digital download.
Yeah.
Copy. Either way.
Or read it on your phone.
Read it on your phone, your iPad. It's amazing all of the changes that have gone on. And well, Les, it has been indeed a pleasure to have you with us on the show today.
You too, Carl. Thank you.
Thank you so much for making the trip down. And folks, thank you for joining us for East Alabama Today as well. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you again next time.